Looks
That
great.
haircut that he has right now, I
That
gotta
haircut
tell
is
you.
stellar. Stellar haircut. He's so
Stop.
smart. I
He's a
forget how
football
smart he is.
player. Oh, that's right. He did go to Cal, didn't he?
Excuse me, are you really gonna talk crap right
Yes.
now
Yes,
on
I am.
the
Yes.
okay?
Yes, I really am. Y'all be like,
Football chat for a reason.
right. Y'all, yeah, and y'all started this conversation.
Well, actually, more like I didn't. It was more Henry and Eric. I just simply
Did you see the joke that they made to the Final Jeopardy on Monday night?
yes about the Bucks
That was
game.
good. Yeah.
I think we're pretty close to most of our members back, but I don't know.
We're only 5 short.
Okay. All right, sure. I'll give them a couple minutes. Oh. All right, we're gonna start. I would like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda once more to include what's it called? Hang on. The audio equipment for free RSO rental university bill. Could I get someone to perhaps do that for me? To make that motion.
Motion to add that to the agenda.
Thank you. Could I get a second? Please. Please.
Second.
Thank you. Consent? If needed.
Consent.
Thank you. Any opposition? Oh, too slow. No opposition. Great. So that's on the agenda now. I'm gonna put that at the end. Free rental. That said, we're going to move on to our first of 3 pieces of legislation, assuming everyone's back. And that one is the climate action resolution. If this would go away so I can... Okay, so these are all the people who signed the petition. And here it is. And this is our Vice President for Sustainability, Chelsea Spayman. She may take the floor.
Hi, everyone. So for those of you who are a little unfamiliar to me, my name is Chelsea, and I've sat as your VP for Sustainability this past year, but due to my class schedule, I haven't been able to attend any meetings up until now. I did get special permission to be here. So many of you are aware of this resolution, and many of you are likely co-sponsors for it. Like Dakota said, it currently has over 100 co-sponsors of students, staff, and faculty. This resolution was drafted after the Student Sustainability Summit, which many of you attended, which was put on by WSA and the Office for Sustainability. And to provide some background as to how that played into the resolution, that event had almost 80 people alone on a Saturday, and these participants helped us write and properly voice the opinions and concerns of students into this resolution. And then after that, we held one more public event after making a draft of this, Ida and I, to have students come and give any other input. So from there, I really cannot emphasize enough that this resolution was written for and by students. It is important, however, to note, as you can probably read in the background, that climate action and environmental stewardship at WMU came long before this resolution. WMU established one of the first environmental programs in the state of Michigan in 1972. So this resolution just further implores WMU to enact a comprehensive plan to address the climate emergency, which encompasses current and future students. Currently, WMU's carbon neutrality date is 2065. At the beginning of this entire year, that was one of our goals, was to lower it. And as outlined in this resolution, that's too late. I would like to highlight the major points of this resolution before we get to questions, concerns, and discussion. Our current date does not align with the scientific consensus and thus needs to be lowered. We need WMU to prioritize their current climate commitments, we need the administration to make clear statements and endorsements for climate action, and that there needs to be the highest level of transparency and accessibility and climate action at WU in the future, and that students are permanently involved in these discussions. So from there, I would like to open the floor up to anybody.
Vice President Effinger.
Thank you, Speaker Shapiro. I know throughout this year, WSA, especially on the cabinet, we've set our goals and things we value when we're talking with administration. And previously, we said that the carbon neutrality date we'd like to be 2040, and in the bill it says 2030. What's the explanation behind moving it up an additional 10 years?
The explanation is that moving it up 10 years more closely aligns with the scientific consensus, and that even 10 years is probably too late, but it's kind of like we need it to be as low as possible, but within reason. And after speaking with many faculty who are experts in this area, which I am not yet at least, 2030 is the most reasonable number that we could come up with.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Speaking list is obviously instated.
I would also, if I could add even a little bit more background, if that would be helpful, just for anybody who's kind of wondering. This resolution is kind of to help us set expectations. We want these things from WMU moving forward. We already have a climate action plan that was written in 2012. It wasn't enough. And as of this year, the current carbon neutrality committee has reconvened, and we are helping them set the expectations that we want as students as we move closer and closer to a world that doesn't look like, or isn't going to look like, what it is now.
I'm seeing and hearing no questions. We will move into discussion time. Does anyone have anything they would like to discuss regarding this piece of legislation? Vice President Theory.
Yeah, thank you, Dakota. I was involved in some of the writing of this and offering my input, and one of the things that I wanted to highlight in this bill and at this meeting as well is what we're seeing from COVID can be in part attributed to the loss in biodiversity in our ecosystems and how we're interacting with animals much more closely than we were in the past. And so, some of the pushback that we can anticipate is that the climate emergency is not as much of an emergency as we are making it out to be in this bill. But I hope, when we do receive that pushback, that we bring up the fact that we have been living through a pandemic that has killed over 2 million people on the planet, caused by loss in biodiversity because of climate change, amongst other economic factors. So it's all interconnected. And, if institutions are really serious about improving the country and the world and reducing the likelihood that we will have another pandemic, then they should support this. And I also want to remind folks that the last meeting of this year, President Montgomery will be in attendance, and I hope that this is something that we can bring up to him and suggest that he openly support.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, seeing none, seeing as this doesn't regard WSA budget, right? We could call this on consent. So do we have consent?
Consent.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, this has been passed by consent. So thank you, Vice President Spayman. We will now move on to the next item, unless you have any final remarks, Vice President. No. Okay, cool. We will now move on to the next piece of legislation. That is the menstrual tax resolution. I will call up Vice President Emma Barada to speak on this.
Hi, everyone. I'll keep it pretty brief. This is very straightforward, but this resolution came about because I was reached out to by my counterpart at Michigan State University and their student government, and they essentially just drafted this resolution, which is intended to voice support for the bills in both the Michigan State House and State Senate regarding removal of the tax on menstrual hygiene products. So there's some information in this bill. For example, in Michigan, typically $6.9 million are spent every year on menstrual hygiene product taxes specifically. So that's not including the price of the actual product, which anyone who's ever bought them knows they are not a cheap thing to have to purchase to start with. But essentially, the bill talks about the health risks of people not being able to access these products. It's important to know that, you know, the health risks associated with not having access to menstrual hygiene products do not apply only to people who menstruate. They apply to anyone who, you know, has to use public like transportation and you're sitting somewhere people don't have access. Like, this is a very important issue, and I know just from experiences in the past that this is menstrual hygiene products are generally one of the most highly demanded products asked for in homeless shelters and women's shelters. So this is essentially college students across the state of Michigan voicing support for the removal of this tax so that we can hopefully work towards making these products more affordable for anyone who needs to use them. I know the document was shared with you all, so I won't read it to you, but I'll also invite Dakota and Brian to give any commentary. They actually met with Michigan State who wrote this legislation. So if you guys have anything to add, I welcome you to do so.
Yeah, just really quickly, doing some research on this, there are actually some states that tax feminine hygiene products at a luxury tax rate, meaning the highest basically tax rate that you can legally charge, which is incredibly ridiculous. So I've shared this with my counterpart at Georgia State, trying to get a hold of the ones at Georgia Tech. And we're trying to get this not just in Michigan, but, you know, as much of the country as possible. But obviously, you know, we're Broncos and Michigan's going to be our stronghold and foothold. So this is a very important bill and can serve as a model for the rest of our nation, and for your support in getting this one passed.
Yeah, as what was said earlier by the Vice President Barada, you know, we're looking to pass this, and this is also, you know, they passed this. I believe they passed this at Michigan State. That's why they're bringing it to us. Yeah, and so the hope is we can get a bunch of universities to pass this and coerce wrong term, but get the government to do coerce. Maybe not be the wrong term. I'm seeing some head shakes like, nah, that's the right one. But get the state government to also move forward with something similar. So the hope is to get this passed here and every university in Michigan, and then the state government. So yeah, that's it for me. Any questions? We're gonna move into questions. Vice President Effinger.
Thank you. At the very end, where we get to the therefore statement, it mentions that we will support any legislation, including the 2022 fiscal year budget as proposed by Governor Whitmer. Are we supporting the entire 187-page document, or only the sections related specifically to menstrual hygiene products?
So I will start by saying that this text was not written by any of the three of us. It was written by the students at Michigan State. However, I believe that it says that mandates the elimination of sales and use tax on menstrual hygiene products. So I am assuming that it would imply only the fiscal year budget. If someone would like to propose an amendment to make that more clear, I would be comfortable with making that amendment if we feel like that's not clear in there, because I think that's a fair concern to bring up.
Yeah, if anyone would like to propose that amendment, menstrual information is on pages C5 and C8, not that I looked it up.
So moved.
Point of order, this is question period. We can't make motions till discussion.
Thank you. Sorry.
So for now, are there any other questions before we move into discussion and we can start working on that amendment? I can also throw in, we in the past have passed several, okay.
Isn't there a question period? Isn't that what we're in right now? Or was I off base?
In Robert's Rules of Order, questions are asked during debate, so they're combined. We just choose to separate them, but not.
Oh, I think if we're gonna set something like that, okay, whatever. Then fine, and then let's motion it if it can be motioned, or finish up, Vice President Barano, what you were saying.
All I was going to say is that this initiatives related to menstrual hygiene products have been brought forward in WSA over the years. There was a really good effort last year, an RSO on campus, I believe they're called Period at WMU, and they brought forward some legislation to give access to menstrual products for free in all of our campus buildings. So just to give you some perspective, there has been kind of consistent support for making sure that these products are accessible for students, and this would just be taking that, a step beyond our campus and advocating for that to be, obviously this is to be made free, because that's not what the legislation on the table currently states, but this is a step in the right direction, and that's why we thought it was necessary to bring it forward to all of you after being reached out to by these students at Michigan State. We all felt like this was a really good initiative and that we would hopefully get some support from all of you, so that Western can be signed on when they're like, look at all the college students who care about this issue. With that, we can move into those motions on the table or any other questions.
As I'm not saying other questions, we'll move into the discussion and motion period. So that motion can be made. I forget what it was. That motion can be, should someone want to say it in full so I can write it.
Motion to amend the bill to speak specifically to the menstrual parts and not the overall budget.
What line is that on?
Scroll.
Yeah, it's at the very end. I know Eric had the specific lines, so maybe if it's right where it says resolved, limited to Governor Whitmer's, what were the two line locations, Eric? We can put those in. I think
it was under pages C5 and C8.
Okay, so if people accept this edit, just including but not limited to C5 and C8 of Governor Whitmer's proposed fiscal year budget.
Okay, we'll have to still run it through. Does anyone second that?
Second.
Consent?
Consent.
Opposition?
Should we put page?
Or let's do page, yeah.
Did you say it was line, Eric? I don't remember if you said line or page.
It's page C-5 and C-8.
Okay, perfect.
To page C5
and dash C-5.
You're right. All right. Was there any opposition?
Be pages, but you're.
Oh, thank you. Still working on.
As a reminder, we don't have to worry about grammar. It should be sent through Grammarly after it goes through House and Senate, but before it goes to Taylor.
Yeah. All right, I'm still working off spring break. Not that I had good grammar before, but all right. I'm not hearing any opposition. We'll call it good. All right. So now moving. Any further discussion or amendments to be made?
We're in discussion on the amendment.
On the amendment. Vice President Effinger, let's discussion on the amendment.
Cancel that. I withdraw.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment that has been made? All right, hearing none, back to our regular discussion on the thing as a whole. Anything else?
Point of order. You have to vote on the amendment. Sorry.
Didn't we already vote? We called consent on it.
You called consent to make the amendment, but you didn't vote on it.
I gotta read that Robert's Rule thing. All right, here we go. Can we call consent on the amendment action? Okay. Does someone call consent?
Consent.
Does someone second?
Second.
Is there opposition? I'm not hearing or seeing any. We will call that added to the bill resolution. That said, back to our regular discussion on the thing as a whole. Thank you. Yes, please. Alexis, please. Just get rid of it. Okay. Any other further? Okay, Vice President Effinger.
Thanks. I was just wondering if would it be possible for a motion to be made again, because it says supporting any legislation. I looked at Senate bills like 153, 154, and House bills. I looked them up, and they cover a lot more than just the menstrual products. Again, so just kind of adding in that clarification of specific portions of text that support this instead of just entire bills. If there's any discussion on that or potential motion.
Is there anyone who wants to fulfill that?
I will say, like, within the language of the bill, throughout you have the appendix where some of them are more like clearly identified, but in the whereas section where it's just referring to them generally, I think it says, regarding the exemption of sales and use tax on menstrual hygiene products. So I don't know if it's completely necessary to change them. I also if you guys feel like it's necessary to have that be like clarified, I think that's fine. But I also think that like the bill is trying to address the issue generally. So I don't want to target specific legislation because the purpose of this is to promote any legislation that would be on this specific issue. So if we start putting in numbers, that will exclude any like future legislation that could be brought forward.
If I can just respond to that real quick. I wasn't mentioning specifically those bills. I'm just saying, using those bills as an example to say it's in there, but there are other things in there as well. So any legislation, instead of just saying any legislation, just say legislation with textual components for the elimination of menstrual hygiene product tax removal.
We're going to take a moment. We have reached our time for the meeting. That said, I will entertain any form of motion to extend, or we can table. Whoever left, I hope you weren't a senator because you shouldn't be leaving yet. So, entertaining motions.
How long do you want it extended? Like,
that's up to you. I'm just here to entertain the motion. So we can exhaust the agenda, and I'll flash the agenda so you can see what we have. We are here, or we can do a minute, a certain amount of time, or we can table.
Motion to exhaust the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Consent. I think we need. Thank you, Jacoby. Consent.
Consent.
Any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, we will exhaust the agenda. House Speaker Krozik, please send my apologies to your friends in the House. Here we go. So, any more discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Once again, this doesn't deal with our WSA budget, so we can call consent.
Consent.
Second? Anyone? Anyone want to call second?
Second.
Thank you. Consent? Wait, I already did that. Sorry. It's the end of the day. Opposition? Hearing none, seeing none. This is passed by consent. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Vice President Barada and Senator Taylor, for presenting here. Moving on, our final thing is free rental of audio equipment, which is right here, and that's Vice President for University Pride, Alexis Morris. So she has the floor.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'll try and make this quick. So this is the One University bill that the University Pride Committee is trying to pass for the year. And it has to deal with buying $6,000 worth of audio equipment for RSOs to be able to rent for free. A little bit of background for those that might have not have read it or read it a long time ago. The Bernhard Center does not offer audio equipment that can be rented outside, as well as most organizations outside of like CAB, BSU, WSA don't have equipment of their own or places to store it. So we just wanted to find a way that was more accessible, especially as we head into not a completely COVID-free fall, finding ways for students to be able to safely gather. And we think that audio equipment might be one of those. We've been in conversations with the Bernhard Center regarding the tents outside of Sangren. Those look like those are going to be in place for the fall. But again, with the Bernhard Center and the New Student Center not offering audio equipment for student usage, kind of falls on those organizations that do have privilege and power, in our opinion, to provide opportunities for students. So with that being said, the bill, as is clearly outlined, is that we will spend $6,000 on this audio equipment. Then it'll be maintained by the Bernhard Center, soon to be the New Student Center staff, and then students will be able to rent it. With that, that's kind of all on my presentation. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. The money will be coming from my budget.
We'll hold discussion points until discussion period. Any questions, though?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So you said, I'm sorry if you mentioned this, there is no cost to rent this, or is that correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
There'll be no, the only cost that will incur is us buying it.
And have you identified specific equipment or not yet?
Yeah, we've identified the equipment, but we haven't been able to order it or find out where quantities are because of the timeliness of the equipment company that we want to go through. It's the same one as the Bernhard Center, but the tax exemption will exist and such.
Any further questions? Vice President Effinger.
Have we discussed where this equipment will be stored when not being used?
Yes, so that's why the maintenance side of things will be done through the Bernhard Center, as well as the rental process will be maintained through them. So for now, it'll be on the second floor of the Bernhard Center with their own audio equipment, because it'll be very similar to ours in terms of size and the same brand. We're going to make sure that it's marked specifically like WSA's audio equipment, but it'll be stored in the same place.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, seeing none, we move into discussion. Vice President Effinger, you had a discussion point.
Thank you. As the keeper of the finances, I would be more comfortable if this funding were to come out of the Campus Improvements Fund instead of the University Pride Fund, trying to keep with what we've done in the past with the example snowshoe resolution, and that was something that students could rent out for free with one of our campus partners, and that's where it was withdrawn from. So just trying to keep with that precedent, I would just ask if someone would be willing to make a motion to amend it to come out of the Campus Improvement Fund.
Can I respond to that before? Is that cool?
Yeah, you may.
Okay, awesome. I was just basically gonna say, it's like I have like a $6,000+ budget right now, and we haven't spent any of it this semester. So I understand like your reasoning there, but it's like, I don't know. We have the money in my budget too, so I don't know if it necessarily matters where it's coming from.
I mean, my only thing is personal budgets by cabinet members are supposed to be on their personal projects, and that considering this was a committee project, it seems more appropriate also to come from campus improvements.
Senator Ewing asked how much is in the fund for campus improvement currently.
Currently, there is $18,053.43.
Thank you.
And currently, Alexis's account has $6,500, so it would relieve her with $500 for the rest of the year.
So that leaves. What's that? Who's that?
Permission to speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I don't really care where the money comes from, but I'll say if it does come from the campus improvement fund, we should consider a transfer of $6,000 to the campus improvement fund so that we can still allow for other opportunities to use those resources, since this is a project that Alexis was comfortable paying for.
So that leaves us with listening for. So does a motion want to be made? Is there a motion that wants to be made? Vice President, right? Did you want one made in counter to?
I can't make motions.
Well, right, but
I'm just providing insight.
Okay. Okay. Well, continuing discussion.
Yeah, I was to say to Vice President Barada's point in the chat, that was kind of like what I was like banking on. Was like, this is my committee's project, so I thought it'd be cool to be associated with our budget.
I'm okay with supporting Jacoby's idea of it being a transfer from your budget to the campus improvements fund, but I just think we need that consistency that it should come out of the campus improvement fund. You can still make that transfer though, so you're really buying it through the separate account.
Okay, that's cool.
Are you requesting that someone make a motion? Yeah.
Permission to speak. Is there specific language that says it's going to come from the University Pride budget or be paid for by the University Pride for? If it says paid for, then we can just consider a transfer fine and we don't need to make any amendments.
It specifically says in the amount no greater than $6,000 using the Vice President for University's Pride's budget. So it says using that budget, not any other fund.
Heard.
A lot has been said back and forth. If someone wants a motion made to amend or wants someone from the Senate to do that, please restate what that is.
Motion to amend the bill to say no greater than $6,000 paid for by the Vice President for University Pride. That way it could still be her money just going through the Campus Improvements Fund.
Would anyone like to make that motion on behalf of the Vice President?
Motion to make that amendment.
Second? Consent? Second. Do we have consent?
Consent.
Opposition? Hearing none, seeing none. Okay, so in an amount no greater than $6,000 usually spent by the Vice President for University Pride. Is that the verbiage you want? Vice President Effinger.
Paid for by the Vice President for University Pride through the Campus Improvement Fund.
That's not a P. Or through the campus improvement. Am I missing a the in there? Paid for by the, thank you. In an amount no greater than $6,000 paid for by the Vice President for University Pride through the Campus Improvement Fund. Does that look good?
I am very happy with that.
Cool. That was me. Do we now have to vote again? Is that Robert's rules? So we voted on whether or not we're going to make it.
Correct.
All right. Discuss. Anyone want to discuss this? Okay, hearing none, saying none. Once again, we'll call another consent.
Consent.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any opposition? Hearing none, saying none, that amendment has passed. Any more discussion for the bill as a whole? Hearing none, seeing none, this involves budget, so we have to bring it to an actual vote. Give it 20 more seconds for everyone to vote. Please, everyone vote. How many senators are here right now? Okay. All right, done. It passed. So thank you for sharing, and everyone, thank you for voting. We'll now move on to our final agenda item. No announcements. Notes from the senators. Anything the senators would like to say? Seeing none, hearing none. Anything from cabinet?
I have something real quick.
Go ahead.
I heard back from the Dunbar Renovation Committee. They'd like to thank the senators and the House for all of your feedback on the gender-neutral bathrooms going into Dunbar Hall. Unfortunately, due to a number of external factors that are beyond our committee's control, for example, Michigan's building codes, we are not able to put those into Dunbar Hall. So I want to just update you all and thank you again for working with us and having that mature feedback conversation.
Thank you. I saw Executive Vice President Wright's hand up, and then Vice President Eagle, you can go next.
Yeah, short. Just if you haven't voted, please vote. We have ties I'm trying to get rid of so we can get awards ordered. Please vote. Please, please, please vote.
That's, of course, for the end of the year awards, which you all have a link to. We'll send it out again if you need it. Just ask. Vice President Eagle.
Hello. I am in the process of planning the annual compensation review panel. For those of you who don't know what that means, basically one of my jobs as Vice President for Rules, Bylaws, and Administration is to host a panel to determine what cabinet members will be paid the following year. So for next year, I don't have a date set for that yet because I'm waiting to create a panel. So if you are interested, if that sounds like it would be fun to you, please send me an email. I will drop my email in the chat. And then we can set up a time for all the interested people.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Can we keep the ties? Could we keep the ties? That's funny. I don't see anyone else. If you do have something, just speak up now, because I'm not seeing you. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 5:46.
Motion to adjourn at 5:46.
Second.
Consent. Consent.
Consent.
Thank you.